minister noted that consultation has begun to pinpoint other possible sites to stage these major events.
In terms of a venue for events such as, the concert events that we get approval for, we are evaluating one or two places that I'm not at liberty to, since the negotiations are ongoing, to say right now. But I think I can mention Gaiety on Rodney Bay as perhaps one of the areas I think if government can acquire, they can get some rehabilitation done as either as a national cultural and youth center for the development in the arts, in music, have some conference space as well, and of course some rooms available for youth development in St. Lucia.
Reporting for the Hot 7 TV News, I am Kareem Nelson.
Beyond the Headlines is sponsored by Flow.
Step in beyond the headlines now at 15 minutes before 7 here in St. Lucia and across the Eastern Caribbean. A lot has been said over the last 24 to 48 hours about the use of sport and news, in particular the Darren Sammy cricket ground for recreational and entertainment events in a particular. Strong statement from the Minister for Sports, who is also the Member of Parliament for Grosley, where the facility is located, indicating that from 2023, no events not associated to sporting activities will be permitted at the Darren Sammy cricket ground. So you're talking a plethora of carnival events and even private functions. You know them all too well. So just to be careful that you think we're not in touch with what's happening, we're zooming in on this particular issue right now. A good friend of the show, Adex Lava, social commentator, is on the Flow video line, and later Sports Administrator Terry Finisterre will join us just around the 8 o'clock hour. We have lots more to discuss, but let's zoom in now. Adex, good morning. Thanks for coming on. Very strong statements by your Minister for Sports.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, very strong statement, which I will go on record to say I think is ill-informed, I think is short-sighted, and is without consultation with professionals in the sector. So, I mean, on the one hand, I do believe he's working within a particular thinking or mindset. There may have been an event that took place that could have potentially, and I'm not speaking from a place of knowledge, could have potentially have damaged the field or whatever. So on the one hand, I think there is a need and a conversation that's needed about protecting the grounds. But then I think it needs to also be taken from the context from professionals who work in the sector to sort of step back and say, okay, hold on. Are we providing the right investment and resources to have events there? Because I'm saying this from a context as an individual who's worked in the sector as a professional, somebody who has worked across the region. What makes Darren Sammy's ground so special that we can't have mass crowd events, but you can go to Kensington Oval in Barbados, which continually has mass crowd events, much larger than we have in St. Lucia. You go to Kim Collins in St. Kitts, another stadium grounds that continues to have events and that are mass crowd events, and their governments, their ministers continue to have events there. So the problem is actually we're not doing the right investment. We don't have the right people at Darren Sammy grounds to put on mass crowd events and protect the grounds in a professional way. That's the problem. Yeah. The problem is not the event. The problem is who's managing the grounds.
Right, absolutely. And there are other examples as well. Go to Kingston, Jamaica, and the National Stadium there is the home for the independence celebrations and many other social events. And you have examples, Dominica as well, the cricket stadium, that is where the Creole Music Festival will be held later this month. So there are examples across the Caribbean, but ill-advised, Adex, because you think there's no real evidence to say that there was any damage or these events cause damage. Is there that evidence?
I mean, as someone who has worked the grounds for multiple events, including Marshall Montano, I think I had worked an event there with Chronics also. I can without doubt say that we do not have the correct infrastructure and investment put into Darren Sammy to host masquerade events because there is no way to protect the grass to cover it. So, for example, in Barbados, when there's an event taking place there, they cover the entire grounds. You're not walking on grass, you're walking on another surface.
Yes.
Whereas in St. Lucia, they protect the pitch only, and there's a limited part of the field that be protected. That's a bit dangerous. It's been raining quite frequently.
Yes.
So we haven't provided the investment. When you have more than 5,000 people walking on a specific area back and forth, with the rain that we had or anything else, it is going to create damage. The question is not whether or not we can do masquerade events there. The question is what investment are they providing to do not just for the grounds. The entire facility is lacking the professionals that are needed to run the event, to run the space, and to make it profitable. At the end of the day, you mean to tell me the grounds, which has not been getting much investment from the government, successive governments, is now going to cut itself short from profiting from masquerade events?
Yeah.
So how is it going to raise money is the question. So I think that there is a lack of consultation that has taken place with professionals in the sector. I think this is short-sighted on their part and ill-informed, and let's not be honest with ourselves and say, just earlier this year, they were going to use the entire facility for Carnival. That's the largest masquerade event. They were willing to do it. What is so different from having an event that took place over the weekend, which would be even 10% of the numbers, and suddenly go down on events?
Yeah, absolutely. And a number of Carnival events were held at Darren Sammy this year. Number of them in different colors. You had them in red, you had them in a variety of colors as well. They were held there. And soon after Adex, you had CPL coming to Darren Sammy. So it worked well. So you're obviously right. It's a question of management. The surface covering that you spoke of, I remember, and maybe you can recall, that was used at Minder Phillip Park a couple of years, correct?
Correct. And I mean, there must be a way, and I mean, the industry modernizes itself over time. I think what we may have in St. Lucia to cover it was not the best. I think we need to look at innovative ways and reimagine the ways of covering the field to allow us to be able to have masquerade events, which are not sporting facilities at such venues, because we need to also recognize there is a lack of venues for masquerade events in St. Lucia across the region, so that when you're looking at 10,000 plus, it is going to be at a stadium, and other countries, Barbados, Jamaica, Dominica, St. Kitts, they put in the investment to ensure that you can have sporting facilities and you can also have entertainment facilities to be able to do that. I would call on the minister to actually look at the investment placed into Darren Sammy. You look at the VIP rooms, you look at the seating, it's in a deplorable state. That's what needs to be done. Instead of making this sort of attack on events after COVID, when there have been limited events taking place, this is an industry that needs to get back on its feet, and taking away one of the venues for masquerade events actually puts us off the map. It means when we look at artists who are willing to perform in St. Lucia, who could bring 10,000 people or more, where are they going to go? If they can't do it in St. Lucia, they're going to say, we're not going to come to St. Lucia where there are no facilities to do that. They'll go somewhere else. And I think it's tongue-in-cheek without saying that if he's willing to put the event industry on notice that sporting facilities will not be used for events, I suggest that he put his government on notice not to use the one in the south as a hospital.
That's a long and hard discussion, but I think it's a fair position that you've just shared, Adex. It can't be right for one facility and wrong for another. So let's do what is necessary to free up all the facilities. If it is your wish, Mr. Minister, to have it exclusive for sports. But obviously reactionary, Adex, do you think there's time for him to pause and consult, speak to his cabinet colleagues, speak to people within the sector? Because as you rightfully said, perhaps it's the only venue apart from the park the Pigeon Island National Landmark that will attract a certain caliber of international artists.
Correct. And again, I think this is a well-needed conversation. I think it brings into light the facilities that are available. I would actually not be of support, again, to go into Pigeon Island, because for persons who may not be aware of the event industry and what is required, when you're looking at mass crowd events, it's a lot of infrastructure going in and out. Mindo Phillip, the stadium, Darren Sammy, there's a way of facilitating that in a particular way. But when you look at Pigeon Island, when it rains, that's a national trust. It's a hard venue to work when you're looking at large numbers, and it really does destroy the grounds. So I think smaller events can take place at Pigeon Island. But when we're looking at doing bigger events, when we're looking at 6,000, 7,000 and upwards of 10, we need to start thinking outside the box and saying, okay, right now, if we're not going to be using sporting facilities, how can the government help local investors, local event persons leverage financing to build a venue that can cater to the numbers in the north and the south? Right now, we don't have those spaces. And then to be ill-informed, short-sighted, and without consultation, take that away from promoters and event owners, I think is not the way to go. I think the statements made by Ernest Ile is great in the sense of looking into how events are approved, but I think we really need to pay attention to the event sector and support it the way it needs to be supported and not cut it off by its legs.
Yeah. I think
bad decision.
I like that proposal, Adex, where central government could facilitate the private investors within the sector to leverage funding to construct a facility, and I think there's some interest within the sector who would forward that as well. So excellent proposal. Two things before we wind down, Adex. Let's talk numbers, because and you know there's a segment of our population who believe you don't need these events here, we don't need these events here. But let's talk numbers. For the event held last weekend, there are approximately 700 French nationals. That's outside that's outside of a government-funded thing. 700 French visitors plus, who came via the sea transportation. They had to get accommodation. They had to get meals, beverages while on island. They also had to get the fees to the arena had to be paid, and gasoline for the departure and the return to their home destination. That's just the French. Plus the St. Lucian side of it, the various service providers, stage, light, sound, food, the brewery who sold so many beverages, the small shop owners who had the outfits as well. Perhaps just over last weekend, $100 million, not $100 million, but $1 million invested in the economy through that event.
I would say, I mean, I was just listening to you and trying to crunch the numbers, and I was going to land around there. I think before I answer that, I think we really need to appreciate, and I appreciate you asking that question, what an event of that magnitude does to the local economy. In that this is a local company, Verve, two young individuals and a team who are putting on a show that generates revenue for the local economy, and they should be respected for that. Carnival does it, a number of other things. Verve has gone on, whatever it may cost to bring this artist, however controversial, and I do think the artist should have come. I just think proper checks and balances should have been done. However, this is an event that would have generated about $1 million or more in local currency and injected that into the local economy across whether or not it's 700 Martinicans coming or not. It's still about the same amount, because what is happening on the ground is that you're generating revenue for artists, you're looking at tents, executions, you're looking at food and sales, liquor, beverages. It's generating that in the local economy and circulating that within a part of the population that needs to see some kind of injection into their income. So yeah, and if we continue to have those, that is what we need to see generate income for parts of the population. And it's really important, and cutting it off at its legs and saying that events will not be taking place at such a venue means that we're losing $1 million worth of local injection into the economy. People have the money to spend and want entertainment. So where are we going to do it? We're going to say we're going to only wait for Carnival. We're going to only wait for national events. The government can do its events, but the private sector, event company promoters and owners need to be allowed the opportunity to give this to St. Lucians in a different way.
Yeah. Finally, Adex, let's talk permission. Currently, permission is within the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, and there's a long checklist. Should it remain there, or is it mass crowd events? It should be with the National Emergency Management Organization, you think?
Okay, so for me, and this is one of the things when the whole issue came out with, you know, the police officer on stage with an open carry weapon and everything else. I hold events dear to my heart as somebody who was an event manager. I think the current format, and I call on Ernest Hilaire to continue what he's doing to investigate how approvals are done. I think approvals currently as it sits needs to be less bureaucratic. It needs to be streamlined, and I think it needs to be moved out of the hands of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force as it sits. It should be, according to the way it's on paper right now, with NEMO. NEMO is supposed to be the coordinating agency for government to ensure that all approvals across, whether it's water and sewage, whether there's an exit plan, fire, ambulance, they are the coordinating agency. But what we've seen, and as somebody in the industry, is that the Royal Police Force seems to be the last authority or arbiter of whether an event takes place. You can just listen to the conversation with the ministers saying that with their cabinet meeting, as far as they know, the police were not allowing it. That's kind of curious why the police are the only ones to give that authority. And what has happened is we need to move it out of their hands, because what I've seen happen over time is that the police are using events as their private fiefdoms to be able to make specials, additional revenue for themselves, and actually place police officers there to work those specials out. And that's a very dangerous thing. This is a public resource. These are public servants, and we need to be clear as to what roles they are playing at events, because they cannot be playing both. We cannot blur the lines across police being public servants, providing a public service by the state, and then collecting private revenue to provide a private security system. So I think what we need to do is ensure that NEMO is empowered and is the authority and coordinating agency across government to be able to provide approvals to event owners and managers. And they are the ones we go to, and just not to every agency and to the police who use their authority quite stringently.
Yeah. Adex, I want to thank you. We must continue some other time. There's so much more to discuss, but time is against us this morning. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for always your insightful recommendation and review of what's happening here on our St. Lucia. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. Social commentator Adex Lava on friend of the show as well. Good morning, St. Lucia, on discussing the use of venues, in particular Darren Sammy Cricket Ground. The Sports Minister and Member of Parliament for Grosley, Kenson Casimir, has said effective 2023, no more non-sports related events will be held at Darren Sammy. He's proposing, and he said it, he's proposing the Gaiety on Rodney Bay. Long and hard discussion as to the how adequate that venue is for international architects of Maxi Priest and others who would want to come to our island. But most definitely the events like that nature, they generate some huge revenue injection into the economy, but there's need for us to review the approval system as well. The event which is on everybody's mind and is in the headlines was held safe, and it must be said, we await the police's report as well, but it was held safe and incident free. So if all what was said with the artists, thousands of people came and left in a safe and comfortable environment. So you must say kudos to the organizers as well. And there's room for people in authority to maybe monitor the template that they put on to see how you could do an event like that and nobody got out of hand, nobody misbehaved per se. It was generally safe and incident free. So Terry Finisterre, the sports administrator, will come in later on this discussion. We're also talking this morning trauma associated to various incidents, how trauma affects students and teachers as well, post or what has happened in the summer vacation period as well. So stay with us. We're discussing so much this morning. Productivity Awareness Week is on, and we'll also share the word of the day and the financial tip of the day as well. Our time just about 4.5 minutes after 7 o'clock in St. Lucia and the Eastern Caribbean. Has been this first edition of Beyond the Headlines, brought to you with the kind compliments of St. Lucia's #1.
Beyond the Headlines is sponsored by Flow.
It is with profound sadness that we announce the death of our beloved Emran Leslie Duncan, affectionately known as Matches or Beck of Black Bay. He passed away at the La Minade Hospital in Martinique on October 2nd, 2022 at about 5:45 p.m. He was 26 years old. The funeral service for the late Emran Leslie Duncan, better known as Matches or Beck, will be held on Friday, October 21st, 2022 at Our Lady of the Assumption Catholic Church, Vieux-Fort at 3 p.m. The body will be laid to rest at the La Tournée Public Cemetery. The body now lies at Lazarus Funeral Home, Newburgh Road, Vieux-Fort. May he rest in perfect peace. It is with profound sadness that we announce the passing of our family matriarch, Jeannie Pierre-Louis, better known as Ma Felixier of Belvedere Fosse Jacques Souffre, but resided at the St. Patrick's Rehabilitation Senior Home in the Bronx, New York at the time of her passing. She was 95 years young. She passed away on Thursday, October 13th, 2022 at 6:35 p.m. The funeral arrangements for the late Jeannie Pierre-Louis, better known as Ma Felixier of Belvedere Fosse Jacques Souffre, will be announced in a subsequent broadcast. May she rest in peace. We are saddened to announce the death of Michel Moise, formerly of Lumiere Dennery, but resided at Comfort Bay Senior Citizens Home, Vieux-Fort. He passed